Let's go back. Let's go back and look at the timeline, because there are now serious accusations, and I would call it really scapegoating of, and it wasn't just you, it was me and Bill Ackman. In fact, the Wall Street Journal editorial board, which I respect a lot, mischaracterized what me and Ackman were trying to do in terms of drawing attention to a regional banking crisis in progress, a run on the banks. They called it spreading panic. I don't know how you tweet or publicly discuss a run on the bank that's currently happening and needs to be addressed with an immediate federal intervention. I don't know how you can discuss it without then having someone else mischaracterize it as trying to spread a panic. But Jake, how the Wall Street Journal editorial board didn't mention you, so you're off the hook.
Good,
they didn't know who you were.
Thank you. Thank you.
But seriously, so I went back and looked at the timeline of all of this. And so first of all, we have to understand that this banking crisis now has swept in five bank failures. First, there was Silvergate, but everyone dismissed that because it was some weird crypto bank. Then it was SVB, but everyone sort of dismissed it because they said it was based on panicky VCs rather than a systemic problem in the banking system. Then it was Signature Bank, which got seized on Sunday, which I think utterly refuted the idea that this was just a Silicon Valley problem. Then you had the Fed step in and backstop First Republic, which would have been the next domino to fall if it wasn't backstopped. And then 5, you had Credit Suisse, basically, again, avoid an outright failure because it got backstopped by the Swiss government. So we now have 5 banks in roughly a week, and these are not small banks. Credit Suisse is a GSIB, a globally systemically important bank, and the other ones are top 20, top 30 type banks. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in deposits. So clearly there's a larger phenomenon going on here. And frankly, it's being caused not by like anything VCs did, because VCs are just depositors. We're just one class of depositors. And depositors are not to blame for what's going on here. What's going on is that these banks have huge unrealized losses on their balance sheet. And the losses have come from the sudden spike in interest rates. That's what's going on. The sudden spike in interest rates is because we've had the most rapid Fed tightening cycle in our lifetimes. In the last year, the Fed funds rate's gone from roughly 0 to almost 5%. That has broken a lot of things. And the banks which have broken first are the ones that had pre-existing problems, and they had horrible risk management. But that's who gets broken first in a stress test, right? Is the most poorly run banks, the ones with pre-existing issues. But just because they went first doesn't mean that others don't have similar kinds of issues. Now, I'm not saying this in any way to be panicky. Maybe those banks will be fine, but there are larger issues in the banking system that are worth talking about. And to the point about whether VCs could have spread this, Jake, Hal, you're absolutely right about the timeline. I mean, I went back and checked. I personally never tweeted anything about SVB until Friday afternoon when SVB was already in receivership and the run on the bank had already started with Signature and First Republic, and we could see it with our own eyes. And then this pod didn't drop, the one where we talked about this problem, didn't drop until Saturday morning when the banks were already closed. And by Sunday night, the Fed had acted and basically implemented our recommendations, which was to basically intervene. So I don't know how you can blame this search for scapegoats, I think, is getting out of control, and it's just not factually accurate.